So you may have heard from a previous video that I'm trying to make my own racing game. You may have also heard that I'm going to be making a series of video blogs to go alongside the development of that game. Well, this is that video. You may have also heard that I'm using Unity to help with prototyping. Actually, I have two Unity projects that I should probably merge together. The older project has a day-night cycle, complete with seasons. It's a good enough for now implementation, which will be replaced with a two-body orbital simulation. It also has a functioning scoring tower. Well, it would be functional if it also had a scoring system that sent it updates. Now, the project in my last video has a tiny little problem right now. To show you what I mean, I have the game paused right before it loads the racetrack. Watch what happens when I unpause it in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, it takes several seconds to load, and in the meantime, the game can do absolutely nothing else until it loads. It can't even respond to an Alt F4 until it finishes loading the racetrack. To help explain why my game currently hangs while loading a track, here's Unity's game loop. Normally, Unity is able to execute all of these functions in the blink of an eye, many times per second. A game's frame rate is a measure of how many times the game goes through the entire loop in 1 second. When I load a track, however, the game object responsible for loading the track gets stuck in the start function until the track is done loading. So I'm modifying the track loading logic to load the track over multiple frames. The new logic will keep track of the time it's taking to load the track, and will pause track loading to allow the rest of the functions to run. Then when the game loop gets back to the loading function, the track will continue loading until a certain amount of time has passed, and pause again. This will keep happening until the entire track is loaded, and will sacrifice loading times for game responsiveness. But hey, at least it has a working scoring system. And to show that these numbers aren't just arbitrarily put in there, I'm gonna move forward. Yep, works perfectly. Oh, by the way, the other cars are currently invisible. For now, all the cars are boxes, but eventually I'm gonna replace them with proper car models. And yes, if you bump into them, they will move. Just like that. And by the way, scoring is currently based on the center of the car. And it's probably gonna stay that way, except to determine who leads the last lap. Now, notice that the scoring system is still trying to score us, even though we're nowhere near the track. Here's our car, here are the other cars, and the track entrance is way over here. So what would happen if instead of going to the front stretch to enter the track, I just went to the back stretch? So now we are on the track geometry where we should start being scored. But the game thinks we're somewhere on the front stretch. And it also thinks we're going backwards, as you can see from the decreasing d-long. Oh, now it's corrected itself. It now knows what our proper d-long is, but it still took a while for it to register. I need to make it so that it doesn't try to score any vehicle that is not actually on the track geometry. Currently, the scoring system simply checks the first segment to see if the d-long is less than 0 or greater than the length of the first segment. If it's between 0 and the length of the first segment, then it assumes that the car is on the first segment. If the d-long is greater than the length of the first segment, then it checks the next segment, and so on, until the d-long falls between 0 and the length of the current segment being checked. If the d-long is actually less than 0 when it checks the first segment, then it goes to the last segment on the list, which is before the start-finish line, and keeps going backwards again until it finds a d-long that's between 0 and the length of the segment being checked. It does not check to see if the d-lat is to the right of the leftmost F section or to the left of the rightmost F section. And that's a problem. What I need this to actually do is check every segment to see if the car is on one of those segments. And if it goes through the entire segment list without finding a single segment that the car is on, then it flags the car as being off track and will not score it. Now it's time to implement that. Okay, let's see what happens when I click play. Looks good to me. Let's try and get to the track. Houston, we have a problem. Okay, so I attached the thing to the Unity debugger. So hopefully we should be able to figure out what is happening once I hit the racetrack. That was supposed to stop the program. Might help if I subtract the segment's elevation from the car's elevation rather than subtracting the car's elevation from the segment elevation. Moment of truth. Yep, that worked. Clear the breakpoint, continue, and yep. Where's the start finish line? Oh, I just crossed it. Okay, that looks like it's working perfectly. No, it broke the moment I hit the first curved segment. So there was a problem with checking Euclidean sections on curved segments, which I think I fixed. So just past that break in the wall is a curved segment with a Euclidean section on the left side, and it looks like it's working. So that solves that problem. Of course, I have a lot of work to do if we're going to go from this to something like this, complete with replay functionality. I don't even have a proper menu for this game yet. Plus, I have to go into the Unity editor to change what track gets loaded. Not to mention the fact that my track loader does not load the objects around the track or the decals that mark things like the location of the start-finish line, the entrance to pit road, etc. And I doubt that you want Windows to think that the game has become unresponsive every time you load a large track. Looking at you, Nürburgring. To be fair, this game doesn't have that track yet. My game currently generates the track mesh on a per segment basis, with the mesh being on the local origin of each segment. But I found that that creates some problems with low spring rates, particularly on the seams of the segments. Well, I made a modification to how the material fetching is done, and I'm not sure I like the result. As it turns out, I forgot to put proper values in the list of materials used in each wall. So, that's fixed now. Okay, let's see what happens now that I've made a significant portion of the mesh generator give the absolute position for each point along the segment. This probably is not going to work as well as I think it will. Okay, that actually worked a lot better than I was expecting. All of the surfaces generated correctly. We can actually drive on this track. Alright, let's see what this looks like. I modified the mesh generation to use the absolute point for the surfaces as well. And, interesting. Okay, so I made an adjustment again. This time it's going to generate the objects at the origin. Well, okay, let's try this. Much better. There are a few issues here and there, but this is looking a whole lot better than it was last time. Alright, let's see what this does. I think that worked. There seems to be a few lighting issues, but other than that, I think it worked. Let's see how this drives. Here comes the spot I always run over. There's the seam. And it's still there. Alright, let's see what this does. This is looking a lot better, except for the walls. I'll get to that in a moment. But the surfaces, so far so good. I wonder if this also fixed the seam. Nope. Okay, let's try this. Nope. That did not work. Alright, I made a few other adjustments, and this looks pretty good. Yep, I think that fixes it. Okay, let's see if that fixes the seam. Nope. Alright, time to let the seam issue go for now. Okay, so multi-threading in Unity is a lot more difficult than I thought it was, mainly because I can't do anything from anything but the main thread. Now, instead of the easy route of adapting my mesh generator to working with a separate thread, I have to turn it into a state machine operating on the main thread. Anyways, I got this thing working a long time ago, which is a 1024 by 1024 2D render of the racetrack. And while working on this video, I also got the level of detail system working as intended. So if we were to zoom into here, you can see the 3D meshes just coming into existence. And now the entire track is being rendered. I think I'm gonna make it so that the size of the track determines how far away you have to be in order for it to not render. Haven't decided on that though. Let's zoom in to this corner right here, basically the entrance of turn 1. As we zoom in, you might notice that the corners look a little bit jagged. But as we go in closer, the jaggedness reduces until it's not noticeable. Now I have the track geometry object selected, so as I zoom in, you can see the segments just popping into existence. Well, technically they exist, but they're not being rendered until now. And as we get closer, you'll start seeing them increase in detail. There we go. Starting with the segments that we're actually closest to, all the way up until we get to the maximum detail level. I haven't yet decided if I'm going to make this based on the track size. Anyways, I'm going to end this video off here because it's going to take a while for me to change this mesh generator into a state machine. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe, and share, and I will see you in the next video. This is T Chapman 500 signing off.